Box jumps are one of the most common performance-based explosive exercises and plyometrics used in performance training and strength and conditioning. And while they certainly have their place in almost any kind of training program, they are one of the most butched plyometric exercises that I see performed in performance facilities and online on social media. In today's video, I'm going to walk you through everything you need from a beginner to an advanced athlete of how to maximize your box jumps, how to perform them progressively, and how to progress them so that you can overall improve your athleticism from that beginner to advanced stage and always have some kind of box jump variation in your training program. Hey there, Brandon Splay here from Thirst Gym, and in today's video, I'm going to walk you through everything you need to not only improve your box jumps, but whether you're from a beginner to an advanced athlete, you have a systematic way to improve your box jumps and see the progress in them. The main thing you understand here about box jumps is they're just a variation of plyometric-based training, focusing on triple extension at the hips, knees, and ankles. Those are going to be the key things that we're after in terms of the execution side. I'll go into the details here a little bit more, but what I really want you to gather from today's video is that no matter where you're starting, you can use box jumps in some capacity in almost any kind of training program, whether that is, again, to improve your power and athleticism, whether it's to prep your tissues before squats and deadlifts or any kind of lower body-based exercise, or even use it as a readiness test to see how your body is ready for today's training. So let's get into it. Before we get into box jumps progressions, let's talk about why box jumps are so valuable. Box jumps develop three critical components: reactive strength, rate of force development, and overall coordination of athletic-based movement. These translate directly to better performance in nearly every single sport, that's sprinting faster, jumping higher, changing direction, and being more explosive. But here's the thing most people get wrong. Box jump height isn't just about how high you can get your feet, it's about how explosively you can generate force through the ground. That's why we're going to focus on progressive principles, not just chasing the box height. Now, the first thing you want to do is kind of assess where you're at. So you want to perform a box jump as high as you possibly can to see what you can reach, but at the same time, we want to make sure we're kind of following some general principles of how we're going to perform that. And so with most box jumps, people are performing a couple initial errors. And the first couple things that they do wrong is, one, they either start with their feet too wide or too narrow. We want to be in an athletic stance in terms of our hip width, or like they call our jump stance, to where our feet are slightly outside of our hip width and our knees are slightly bent and our hips are back. That's going to be our starting position. When I want to go jump as high as I can, I'm going to bring my arms up as high as I can, bring my arms down and rip, bring my hips backwards. Notice that my hips are coming back as I go to do the exercise. Then I'm going to jump as high as I can, land on the box, landing again in an athletic stance with my feet slightly wider than where I started. Hips are definitely above my knees. My chest is nice and tall, and I'm in an athletic stance and can own that position. I'm also making sure that I'm landing on the box, I'm landing relatively softly. I'm not going down as hard as I can and then standing up from it. The goal is to have a controlled, soft, athletic-based landing position as I perform the exercise. Now, you will hear yourself land on the box, but trying to land as soft as you can will usually give you a much better landing position. You also don't want to land with your legs completely straight to where you're going to land like this. Chances are, one, you're not jumping as high as you possibly can and maximizing the height, but also we don't want to have any kind of injury issue to our knees by landing too straight and being too forward. And then another big issue that I see when it comes to testing your box height is that people are landing too low. So when they go to jump, maybe they're really pushing that height. Again, this isn't obviously my testing height, but as they go to do it, then they land in a position like this on their toes, really rounded over. Again, this is not an athletic-based position that you're going to want to find yourself in very often. Yes, you are going to be able to test and probably get higher. It's almost going to test more of your mobility in terms of your low back and your hip to be how high you can get up on that box, rather than actually having a standard, again, of an athletic stance and athletic-based position. Now, this will always be subjective, right? But however, when it comes to testing what you could do, make sure you're not just doing blatantly bad box jumps to be able to have a stupid start hiding point that isn't going to get any better over time because you're going to continue to land really bad. Focus on the general mechanics of how you jump, how you land, and have a good moderate-based starting point, and then you can use that to track your progress with the rest of your box jumps as you go through the training programs. Now that we got the basics down of what you should be doing and what they should look like, and having found that initial start height of what you believe is to be your best box jump height, the next thing we're going to do from maybe a beginner standpoint, so this is for beginners only, is you're going to want to start with a low box to work on your technique and get ample repetitions. This could probably be anywhere from 50 to 60 to maybe even 70% of that maximal height that you just achieved to use for your repetition practice. And again, focus on the fundamentals, ripping your hands down, bringing your hips back, jumping as high as you can, and landing in an athletic stance. We're going to perform that from anywhere from 3 to 6 sets of 5 to 6 repetitions, focusing on just the basic fundamentals, and that's going to be the exercise that you start with first. The second progression for beginners is then going to be to build up your box height as you decrease your repetitions. So over time, we want to try to increase the box 2 to 4 inches per every 2 to 3 weeks, trying to get that box a little bit higher. Once we get to the higher box, we want to pull the repetitions down. So if we were doing 5 to 6 repetitions, now we're going to want to do 3 to 4 repetitions at a higher box. This is going to increase the intensity and make you have to focus more on the effort. However, as you raise the box height, we want nothing else to change from our low box for the beginners. We want to maintain the same technique, the same landing spot on the box, chest tall, same arm rep, same triple extension, everything stays the same. We want to try to mimic that low box now to the higher box with more intensity. And so what that's going to allow you to do is, one, continue to work on your jumping technique, your landing mechanics, and get better overall effort. And again, because you should be getting more effort to the exercise and the intensity has gone up, you can justify pulling the repetitions down to make it still not only work well for you, but also ensure that you're giving high quality effort and concentration to each jump to truly benefit from every repetition that you're doing. Now, beginners have 2 major mistakes that I see. The first one is going to be, as they go to jump, their hips are not going to come back. They're going to squat down to squat up. When it comes to getting the highest jump that you possibly can, even if it's talking about box jumps or just a vertical jump test or a hurdle hop, it does not matter. We want the hips to come back as our chest stays tall and my hands to come back with my hips. Notice that I'm hinged over, I'm loading my glutes and my hamstrings. I'm not squatting down to squat up. It's literally just a hinge backwards to get that stretch on the glutes and the hamstrings, which is going to activate the stretch shortening cycle, which is going to let us jump as high as we can. Mistake number 2 is not using the arms or using the arms incorrectly. This might seem really crazy, but this is a very common mistake with beginners, is that maybe they get the hinge portion of it down to load their hips, but they don't bring their arms down as they come down, or as they go down, they come up, and then they bring their arms down as they're jumping up in this fashion. That is incorrect. As we go to rip our arms down, they're going to come back with our hips. As we go to jump up, we want to rip our arms up as hard as we possibly can to contribute to that box jump. Now, when you use your arms correctly, especially beginners, we can see this improve their height immediately from 10 to 15% of the height that they're able to jump. Not only that, it improves their overall mechanics, their overall athleticism, and improves their coordination, and it's going to make them a better athlete. So make sure, yes, it's great to have the low to the high progression for beginners. Seems kind of obvious, but as they're doing that, make sure that their technique, especially the hinging at the hips and loading the proper musculature as they're doing that, and they're not squatting straight down, and that they're using their arm action appropriately to aid their jumping mechanics. Now let's talk about the intermediate-based athlete. You've got your box jumps down, you've moved from beginner to advanced, you understand how to jump on a higher box, you're making pretty big progress. Now we want to use different box jump variations. And what I like for this is being able to change and challenge the athlete rotationally and laterally with the box jumps, and as well as going from 2 legs to 1 leg. So the first variation that I like is just a lateral box jump. You're going to stand next to the box jump on your side rather than actually facing it, and we're going to perform our box jump sideways and land athletically. Nothing else is going to change in terms of the mechanics. Arm reps are going to come down, hips are going to come back, jump as high as you can, and then land on the box. Now, you're going to have to try to get a little more sideways as you go to do that, but you still want to land, again, hips above your knees, relatively good athletic-based stance. The other option that we can do, again, as I mentioned, is a rotational box jump. So the same thing, we're gonna start sideways, and then we're going to rotate in the air and face the way that we would if we did our normal box jump. So again, arm reps is the same. I'm gonna rotate my body in the air to face 90 degrees from where I'm facing. And that's gonna give me a rotational component, which can help rotational athletes and make it more coordination based. Then we can go also to a 2-leg to a single leg jump. So that's gonna be just starting with our regular box jump mechanics, but as we jump in midair, we are only going to land with one leg. So I'm gonna rip my arms down, both legs to one. Now, what this does is it lets us get the power production from both legs, but it's now gonna focus on the landing mechanics in a single leg athletic stance and making it more challenging in terms of how the leg is having to absorb force-wise, but also challenging hip stability as well. So these are my 3 variations that I love for the intermediate-based athlete. You can also then work on different aspects of which way you're rotating and things of that nature. But usually if you're combining something that looks like just a regular box jump, no other kind of jumping variables are there, just how you're landing is the main thing that's changing, or how you're starting your box jump are going to be more of the intermediate-based options. Just like with our beginner, again, start with a lower height initially to get a hang of it, build up your height as you go, and just the same overall programming mechanics, 3 to 5 sets of 2 to 4 reps per side, or 3 to 5 total reps in general, giving as much effort as you possibly can into every single repetition and set. All right, now we're gonna talk about some different advanced plyometric progressions using the box jump. And the first one that I really like for advanced athletes or athletes that are going from immediate to an advanced are different depth drop variations to the box jump. Now, I've got a very low box here for my example purposes, but just so you know, the way that you're gonna make this more challenging is increase the height of the depth drop box. Now, this works great because it's gonna help us develop our stretch shortening cycle for our athletics. And what the goal is to get the box that we're jumping off of or stepping off of to be higher than our actual vertical jump. And what that's going to do is that's going to provide a bigger eccentric training stress to our body as we step off the box and then have to redistribute that force into jumping on the next box. And so that's how it improves the stretch shortening cycle, which will then improve overall athletic performance. You can only do this by jumping off of boxes or stepping off of boxes that are higher than your vertical jump. Yes, you can still improve your stretch shortening cycle by jumping off lower boxes, but we want to attempt to give our body some kind of stimulus that we're not getting elsewhere. So you think if you jump all the time in sport, you're getting the stretch shortening cycle as you do the sport, but you can't start from a higher height that you can jump in a game, but you can in controlled training settings like this. So the goal would be to start on a box, and as we step off, we're gonna hit that ground, and as soon as we hit that ground, we wanna change that force direction straight up onto that other box. So I'm gonna step off here, and notice this as fast as I can. I try to pretend like I want to be on the turf as little time as possible to maximize that stretch shortening cycle. What you don't want to have happen is if you're stepping off a high box and you gotta step off, and when you land, your butt goes way down here, well below your hips, and then you've got to try to jump up on the box. Chances are your body is not ready to absorb that kind of eccentric training stress, so you need to either bring down your box jump height and or add more eccentric based strength training like RDLs, controlled tempo squats, and different split squat and lunging variations to build that eccentric strength to be able to control that weight and your load as you land off the box, or in this case in sport, before you go to redistribute it into other training means. You could also use hurdle hop variations. So if you don't want to do the depth drop options, you could jump over hurdles or benches or any kind of objects that you have, jump over those hurdles and then jump on your box jump. I will also train your stretch shortening cycle to be more efficient, make you more springy and bouncy. For exercises like this for the advanced athletes, these are where you want to have your reps come down to about 2 to 3 reps per set, especially if you're pushing the depth drops very high. Build into these progressively. Do not start with the highest that you possibly can. Start with something manageable, usually again around your vertical jump height or maybe slightly higher as a starting point, and then build that height up as high as you possibly can with control, within reason, that you can redistribute that force onto a different box. If the box height really begins to suffer because of the depth drop option of it, just do the depth drop. Don't worry about adding in the box jump because you're not getting as much force out of that. Now, both are completely fine, but your goal should also be to try to increase your box height as well as your depth drop height stays the same. So you might have this depth drop height stay just a little bit above your vertical and you're slowly increasing this height as well. So you have two different variables to control. Only change one variable at a time as you're progressing through this aspect for advanced athletics. Now I want to talk about some programming things really quick. Now I mentioned some general sets and reps for the beginner, intermediate, and advanced populations for the box jump variations that we talked about. There's a couple key things you want to understand. Number one is that when you're performing box jump variations or really any kind of plyometrics, the goal is to not do a bajillion repetitions, okay? We do not want to do sets of 10, 12, or 15 jumps with any kind of plyometric, but in particular our box jumps. The goal behind box jumps and plyometrics is to generate as much force and power as we possibly can. And to be able to do this, we need to have our repetitions on the lower end, giving maximal effort to every single repetition that we're doing. And then number two is having enough rest between those sets. So if we're doing 5 sets of 3 on our box jumps, we want to make sure that we have at least a minute, ideally more like 2 or 3 minutes between our actual sets of box jumps. So you might think, well, what do I do during that downtime? Do I just sit around and rest? Yes, you can, or you can pair this with other active mobility-based work so that you're not wasting your time in the room and you're still getting something from that time that while you're in the room and doing your performance training. So the goal behind that is that you allow your body to be able to recover from the jumps, but also being able to recover at the metabolic level so that your muscles, especially your glutes, your hamstrings, your quads, and your calves as you go to jump are completely fresh and you can give the best effort. And that's what's going to give you the best neurological based benefits from overall plyometric based training, and in this case, box jumps. Number two is that as you're doing this, you want to make sure that you're doing your jumps at the beginning of your training sessions. You never want to do them at the end if your goal is to improve your performance. Because if you do them at the end of your workout, usually by the end of your training sessions, you realize, hey, I'm kind of tired, I'm exhausted, I'm not giving 100% effort. You're more likely to sandbag. Or you increase your chance of potentially getting injured because you know, hey, this is what my normal box height is. I'm going to continue to use that. And if your legs are completely toast from already doing squats and lunging or RDLs, you're not going to be able to get as much height as you possibly can, and you risk potential injury. Now, number three that's important here is that you can use post-activation potentiation in different contrast methods. I'm going to leave a link in the description box below of other contrast-based training where you can cover all that, but essentially you can pair your box jumps or other plyometrics, but in this case, box jumps with strength training if done strategically. You can pair them with things like front squats, back squats, different deadlift variations, different weighted jumps variations, assisted jump variations, and other different things to be able to maximize the performance and see a better increase in that performance. This should only be reserved for high intermediate to advanced level athletes. Beginners should not be using post-activation potentiation in different contrast-based training. They can see ample progress from just doing the basics and doing the basics very well. All right, that's all I've got here for today's video. If you happen to enjoy the content, make sure you hit that subscribe button, leave a like, leave a comment, share with a friend. All that really helps me out. I really appreciate it. As I'm sure you can tell, I'm also in my new gym space, so hopefully enjoy the videos coming back to the channel. Again, I'll see you at the next video.